Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up.
A place where we inform.
Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
You gotta eat what you kill. You gotta go out there. You gotta hunt for your meals.
We all have that ability to connect with people, to be that motivational person in somebody's life.
You gotta let people know there's certain lines you don't cross, and that there's gonna be consequences if you do.
Man up.
If you are an adult and you are in a relationship, that person's emotions are not your responsibility.
Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
The devil, during slavery, destroyed the masculinity or manhood of the so-called Negro. No man. No man. Right now you got to be trained all over again to be a man.
When someone is obligated to do something, it is binding upon them to do it. And failure to do it causes reaction.
Man up.
Position make you rich. I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life forever.
If that people knew their glorious past, if that people knew their glorious past, if that people knew their glorious past, then they would be more inclined to respect themselves.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up.
A place where we inform.
Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
You want to tell me about yourself? Go get your friends. I'll tell you who you are based on who your friends are.
Don't just live and die. That's an ugly existence. Make your life matter. Make your life count. Live a life where people can actually mourn you for the things you left behind, not just because you were around and existed.
We need strong black nuclear family.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it is. Mother, father, son, daughter, all in the same house with a focus on the family unit as a whole.
We had Tulsa, Atlanta, New Jersey, Detroit. We had Rosewood. We had Black Wall Streets all over.
The Republicans aren't for us, but the Democrats aren't for us either. And we should have no alliance to any political party. We only have alliance to what is in our own best interest.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up.
A place where we inform.
Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
At the end of the day, as men in the community, we must stand together and be counted, because people look to us for guidance, leadership, and protection. And if we are not about that business, we are not on our job. Here we have grown-ass man conversations in the spirit of that purpose. Anthony Malcolm, Bobby Drake, Major Gage. We are. This is Manifestations 2020.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
All right, welcome to another week of Manifestations 2020. We have a super impactful episode today. I have a phenomenal person that I've known for a while. I really admire this queen so much. She's doing so much great things for the community. When you talk about being a songbird, a songstress, and a pillar of somebody that just brings that, I want to say, the when you deal with back in the days when we all heard about, there was this pillar of a motherly figure in the community, whether it was through slavery or the early 1900s, which was around Black Wall Street, the time where we were just biggity, biggity black. You had somebody there that was the pillar, the energy, the feminine energy of the community that grasped and hold everybody together, the glue of the community, the pillar. Um, there was always that one woman that stood out. And I think in this generation, this woman is definitely Elaina the poet. If you ever been around her, you ever felt her energy, you ever felt her spirit, um, you just being around her, you would never be in a depressed mode. She will always be that person breathing life into you. Even if she's not talking to you, breathing life into you. If you hear some of her poems, the poems that she speak of breathe life into you. We have some poems here that she had performed that we'll definitely get a dial in a little bit later. But once you hear the poems, the power, the uplifting, you just hear all the ancestors that flow through this woman. And I'm pretty sure by the time you guys finish this episode, you'll understand why I said what I said. But the people that do know her already know what she comes with. So no other. I give great dues to Elaina the poet. So give it up to Elaina the poet. Thank you for being here with us. We are so honored to have you. And just let everybody know, the ones that don't know you already, just go into your backstory and talk about how you came to where you at this point now and the things that you're doing in the process of that.
Well. The first thing I want to say is thank you to you, Anthony. You are such a example, an example of what young black men should, embody as far as your mindset and what you stand for. But I want to say, as far as me, all glory to God. I don't take any credit for anything. I may have started this journey in my own way, of just wherever life had brought me from and threw me into this, which actually started back in 2000 and I want to say 2006. 2006 is when I originally started going into the streets to perform poetry, and it was more of a medicine for me in regards to life. Just being young, having been heartbroken, and not really knowing at all what to do with myself. We've all been in a place, where I can imagine at this age we've experienced heartbreak, and it never changes its sting, the way it does people. It does grow you up a bit, and it can either make you or break you. And I've always was raised as a Christian, grew up in the church and stuff like that. So I never really decided to throw myself into the streets. I wanted to throw myself into something that gave me relief. And so I started writing poetry. Long story short, I had to make a decision. God had showed me that I had a gift, and when I went out in the streets back in 2006, because what I was using was the pain, and the pain was recognizable to other women, and they would come up to me and say, "Man, that's so amazing, so powerful. You have a book, you have something, anything." And I didn't have anything at the time. They didn't realize I was just trying to help myself, but I didn't know, but God knew. He saw what purpose was for me. And even in that space, I didn't know. But I started to use it as a tool to help me throughout the years. And so I want to say in 2015, I started to do it professionally. I don't know if you're familiar with Cello Davis, the
Oh yeah,
comedian from here,
I love
who
Cello.
does a lot of hosting
Shout out to that brother.
Yeah, shout out to Cello, man. That's my
and
dude right
event.
there.
where he asked me to feature. I did my first feature at his event. And I want to say that was in 2015, 2016. I was dropping my first poetry album, my first spoken word album, which I released. And then it was on and on after that because God started to show me that there's something that you need to do in this. And I couldn't see what it was at the time, but I just kept going, kept moving in it and being active in it. And along the way, as like I said, as I started to write the poems have always been to glorify God. They've always been to help other people. I always reached to that realm. And then I realized in this too that people are drawing from something. In anything that you do, people are drawing from some type of source, some type of entity in order to perform. And so what is your source? Quite naturally. And some people use themselves as a source of energy that they feel gives them power in order to go out there and do whatever it is they do in order to influence people. And God became more of that source for me. Then I dropped another album. And then, he started giving me all these things. And I've always been able to sing. And so I was able to put the two together. And he showed me, he's like, listen, I have a lane for you, and I began to embrace that thing and embrace it. And more. And I would say, Lord, give me the poems, give me the poems. And he told me, he said, you focus on the purpose and I will worry about the people. And even with what you had said about me and listening to that, I don't know that. I just hear people, what they say about me, what they say about what I bring, what I do, and all these things. I pray that God continues to make me humble, but I thank God for him being able to influence the people through his power, through his spirit, through my voice. And so now here it is, all these years later, and I am on my third production, my third annual production, which I do at the Broward Center Performing Arts in Fort Lauderdale. And so it's been a long road, hundreds and hundreds of performances, and now we're in a whole different space with this spoken word, and God just continues to lead me.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. I definitely tell people all the time, like, you know, you really live life when you find your purpose. When you align yourself with God and you find your purpose and you align with God to continue that journey with your purpose, and you start to realize how many people you affect on the long run. Um, I think a lot of times people try to chase the American dream, which is about money. And you already know how God feels about money, the root of all evil. So that's why you hear a lot of people that have money aren't happy. They live miserable lives
The
because they
Bible
don't
says that
align them.
gold and silver belongs to the Lord. The Lord says that
Exactly.
gold and silver belongs to me. So it's not evil. It's actually
Exactly.
not evil. It's the source in which people use it, which
Correct.
makes it. Hmm.
Correct. Correct.
Loving the
So
lust of it.
exactly. So a lot of times people don't align up with their purpose, and they go through life not understanding how miserable it is because you haven't aligned and found your purpose on earth. Because everybody here has a purpose,
That's
whether you
right.
whether you find it before you transition or you ignore it, that's on you. But everybody here has a purpose. Now,
Absolutely.
my thing I want to ask you is, as you know, men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide. That's been a known fact for a long time. As the world goes on and on, we're noticing, especially with inflation, that a lot of women now are suffering from a lot of depression, and on the verge of committing suicide, sometimes even killing off their own children in the process before killing themselves. Um, I know for me, growing up, poetry was an intricate part of my life, and it also kind of saved me from out of the streets. How do you go about advising other people to maybe tap into poetry to help them keep them above water, to give them inspiration, to give them an outlet or a mental health break from the illustrious evils that surround us on a daily basis. What would be your inspiration for people like that that can use poetry to uplift themselves and get themselves out of a dark place?
Well, the first thing is, as I say, for me, I understand that I am a vessel, a servant of God. I am a faithful messenger. And so the first thing I want to let them know or let people know, and the Bible teaches us that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places, which means that just to break it down for those of them who don't understand, a lot of times people don't understand, depending on where you are, the community, the environment, there are spiritual wickedness that are very high in certain areas that cause higher depression and different things like that. It won't be just you, it'll be that whole region where the principality has a stronghold. And so I don't want to go into that, but I think it's very important for people to understand that everything in this life is spiritual first, because remember, the Bible teaches us that when God made us, he said, come, let us make man in our image. And so he made us, and then he blew breath into us, and then we became a living soul. So we only live because God allows it. And so with that, and these are things that I learned along the way. Poetry was just a tool. And it was a tool that I found that I had that drew me closer to God, which I understood initially is the real answer, the real resolution for my problems, for my depression. And so what I would say to anyone who is, going through a thing, because it's going to be, it's in this day and age, I'm not going to be honest, things are going to get harder. So you're going to need a source. You're going to need something in which will give you more life. And so poetry is, I always say, is a gift. If you go on my website, you'll see that is my slogan, and I've copywritten that. Poetry is a gift. It was a gift that I found continues to give. So I would say that, look into more people, like follow a person that feels real and seems real, because that person is connected to other sources of people that are real as well. Like for me, if you follow me, you'll understand that not only do I do my own show, which is content that God gives me, but I follow people that I feel are real. The Bible says you'll know them by the fruit they bear. So I follow certain people, and then I encourage you to follow them as well. Now, no man is perfect. So, I wouldn't say invest your soul into a person. The only one you want to do that to is God, but follow someone who's going to lead you to that source. Because if you're a beginner and you really don't know, you're searching and you're seeking, the Bible teaches us to seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto us. So if you don't know, you follow a person who does know, and then they can lead you into that direction. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Anthony, I don't encourage people to get into anything that doesn't have a God-based foundation to it. That's where I'm at with it, because you can easily follow people that write poetry and they have depression spirits. I know poets personally that have real issues in life, that are going through things, and they just writing these poems and going up there and writing these poems and telling people this, and they got a whole bunch of issues themselves going through this. So I when I'm talking to these young poets out here in the streets, I'm realizing they're battling a lot of the same things that people are battling. And so that's why I say, I encourage you, it's the source in which the person is drawing from, because you don't want to attach yourself to anything just because it seems like a positive thing, because everything is tied to something, and you want to be very careful with that. So always look for someone who's God-based, and not just God, I mean the God of heaven, the God of angel armies. Okay, we're talking about El Shaddai, the Almighty, because there are hundreds of gods. Okay, so we can get into that too,
Okay, yeah, I totally agree with you. Another thing that I tell and I advise people is Have that spiritual, that God base, and then surround yourselves with great mentors, men and women. I think there should be a balance of great mentors around you.
Absolutely.
And I think that is one of the keys to surviving a lot of what we're surrounded by, to combat. Because, like I said, right now we're gearing more towards a spiritual warfare than we have ever
Absolutely.
been
You know
before.
that we are.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
we have to make sure that we are surrounded with positivity at all times. It kind of reminds me of the movie Golden Child, one of my favorite
Mm.
movies where that child was surrounded by evil, and the child had a leaf that he took from outside, and that's what the child was feeding off of, because they were trying to feed the child porridge that was doused in blood. And it was like the main villain said, this pure, innocent, godly child, make sure that they're surrounded by four corners of evil, but that child always had something there to brighten up the day, whether it
Protect
was the
him.
leaf,
Hmm.
exactly, or the bird. So I definitely would say that to people. In the poetry realm, since we're on that, in the poetry realm, I know that you have done poems all throughout nationwide, probably overseas as well. Um, Out of all the places that you've been to, is there more of a stronger poetry base elsewhere than it is here in Florida, or do you think Florida it holds its ground when it comes to the poetry scene?
Okay, so when I know poets from all over the world. I have not necessarily traveled all those places. But what I will say is that I found that here in South Florida, it's not as potent as it is in other places. Here in South Florida, there is a mixture of the arts, and it is big. We have a very big community, but there is no monumental place here that other states have, where you can just necessarily say, like New York has the New Eurekan Cafe, or Atlanta has the Apache Cafe, or you have Philadelphia that has the Bus Boys. Here in South Florida, there's no monumental place where people would travel from all over to come here to visit that spot and say, hey, that's the spot that I have to hit up in order to check off on my list. Here, there's so many people trying to do a thing that it's about who you know. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you here. Here it's very cliquish. Now I'm sure it's cliquish in other places too, but here in South Florida, if you don't know the right people and all this here kind of stuff, people want to make you feel like you got to put your dues in. A lot of other places are not like that. They naturally take to the arts, and the community is thick, when it comes to the love of that. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Anthony. That's the reason why, for me, I began to. God gave me the ability to build my own platforms. I had to start my own podcast and create my own production, and that's why I say I'm a faithful messenger to God, because He carves out my lane. Because you here in South Florida, you can't expect nobody to give you anything if they don't like you. You
Yeah,
understand what I'm saying? And it's not like that in other places.
yeah, exactly. I do want to say that I think, God rest his soul, one of
Will
the
the real
brightest
one.
stars, yes, that I've ever came across before his transition was real the real deal, real the real one.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, I just had so many nicknames for him. We always used to laugh because he was the type of guy that was able to. He was kind of like the Fred Hampton of poetry. In my eyes, that's how I saw him, because it didn't matter what race you were. When you look at him, you think he's just a straight thug and one of the sweetest intellectual dudes that you could ever come across. But you also don't want to play with him as well. So
Right.
he gave me the equivalent balance that I saw, man. And everywhere he would be at, I would go there, because when I first came down here from New York, I definitely went to his spot. I think it was on 125th. He had his place over
Literary
there.
cafe. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And I think the Literary Cafe, I think that would have been an iconic place had he been alive, even to this day. I think that would have been a pillar for Miami because he really had that voice, he had that power, he had that sense of bringing everybody in. And remember, he did a legendary poem on BET. So every lot of people knew him from off of BET. So super dope dude. I know a lot of people were hurt when he transitioned. Um, I know the youngster, shout out to Bert Boyd.
Bertrand.
Yeah. So my boy Bert, he took that hard because he put Bert under his wing. I know there was a girl that I used to follow back in the day because my homeboy used to have a crush on. When I first came down here, we used to go to Rashida down on South Beach, the Bohemian Room. Is that what that was?
Yeah, that's Ingrid. Ingrid
Oh,
was
no, not Ingrid. Okay. Ingrid got the Bohemian Room, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay, so what was Rashida's spot? Rashida had a spot down in South Beach.
I don't remember, but I know I used to go to Terry. Remember Terry, the illustrator? She Terry
Yeah,
Meredith,
yeah.
who's in Broward.
I
She was doing Troy's at Voices and Vibes. And I used to go to her. So back then, I never made it to Will's spot. And
Oh,
honestly, before he passed away, I never made it to his spot. I used to do a lot of the Broward, and then Chris Imperial. I don't know if you're familiar with him from
no.
Delray. All of those old school poets used to mix together, and it was the Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade County. And Will the real one had Dade. Terry was on fire in Broward, and then Chris had Palm Beach.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and
So you had the different tri levels of it. Okay, cool. Yeah, when I went down there, the Rashida spot, that was the spot that everybody used to go down there. I remember seeing Will down there. That was the first time seeing Asia. Asia was super dope. Seeing an Asian poet and the way he spit and the way he is so animated with it, it was just so dope how he really brought another aspect to the poetry scene. So yeah, I got on, became a fan of Asia. I saw the youngster down there. Will was down there, and then there was a girl named Honeybee that my homeboy was deeply in love with. Like he just fell in love with her. Every time she came on stage, he was like, "Yo, I gotta see this girl." So he was one of the reasons why we used to go down there often. And when Will transitioned, a lot of those same poets, man, they took it to heart. And it was just so sad because a part of everybody kind of passed away and transitioned along with Will. And it was just a sad moment in time. I remember getting that call and finding out what really happened, and I was like, man, it's just nonsense. But outside of that, I really didn't see, like I said, I didn't know about the spots that you were talking about because all I knew about was Rashida's spot down there, and then Will just took over with This Way because we didn't really want to go all the way down to South Beach constantly. So we would always hit up Will's spot. And what was crazy was, being from New York, some of your best spots is the most smallest spot. So we get in Will's spot. Will's small. Man, it was like first come, first serve. So we used to make sure we were down there and it was packed up, yo. But the vibe was just so dope, so
and you know what? And that had me, that whole thing, it had me, I was in it, I was in that thing. I was in love with that thing. I was leaving my house. I was making sure somebody hit because watch my baby. I mean, for me, it was about making a name. It was about being seen by the people that needed to see me. Who was that? I don't know. The idea was anybody could be in the room, but I need to be in the room. And that became the chase, and then it was, God, give me the poems. God, give me the poems. And then go out there. And then somebody could just before me talk about, licking and sucking and all this here kind of stuff. And then I got to go up there with my God poems. And the more and then I say, you know what? I don't want nobody to box me in, I want to be able to write about anything and be able to, so I realized, hey, you got to be competitive in this thing. And God said, not so. Along the way, it felt funny. So I've done the slams. I've done, I've tried to get my hands on every part of this particular love of this world of poetry in order to say, hey, that's Elaina the poet. You know her? You ever heard of her before? Okay, boom, check, 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 check off all the boxes. Go here, go there, go there, go there, and then your home falling apart because you ain't never home. You got this guy hitting on you over here, this person hitting on you over here, this man, he love you because, oh, you're so powerful, and all these things that it becomes what is it about?
Yeah.
What is it all for? And then I realized that that's what so many people are doing in this thing. They're getting caught up in the love. They're getting caught up in the people that praise you from it and all these different things. And then God showing me like, you like, oh God, give me the poems. And then I give you the poems and then you get the glory. You get how does this work? And
Yeah.
so I had to realize I had to do, God had to show me a thing, and I had to really take him seriously, and that came from trial in my home. You understand what I'm saying? Trial in my home shook me up. Trial in my personal life shook me up to the point to where, and I'm like, okay, God, I got to draw closer to you. Then he began to unveil my eyes and show me it's a lot of people out here doing this, and they're doing poetry and they're saying one thing, and that's not how they live.
Yeah.
And what do you do it for? And so for me, it had to become about purpose. And that's not just a word, that has to be a life. That has to be the way that I live. If I'm seriously wanting to make a difference, because is that not what I'm trying to do? It's
Yeah.
not the word poet. Doesn't it have some type of aura around it already? So you call yourself Elaina the poet, but what do you do? Oh, do you just perform? Oh, you just saying, powerful? Is that what it is? You have this ability? What is your life? What are you doing on the other side of these poems? And I wanted the poems to be real, and I wanted the same power that came with it to be more real. And then I wanted more of an endowment. I wanted more of an anointing, more of a calling, so it needed to be a choice. And so God had to separate me from that, separate me, pull me out. 20 In 2020, he slowly transitioned me out of the venues. So you'll notice that in 2021, 2022, 2023, I have not been going to any poetry events or venues or open mics because the Lord does not have me in those spaces anymore, because he's not going to be glorified in them. He won't be lifted up, because even if I go up and perform, after that, the next poet's going to get up. The building's still going to be dark, dim. The bartender's still going to be serving her drinks. These people are still going to be trying to hook up at the end of the night. And then what was it all for? So it had its time for me to grind in and do what God needed me to do. And then for me to recognize. And then now I have to be the one to minister to the poets. I have to be the one that hope that when I put Eat with a Poet on my feed, that one of them will click on it and get some life and some substance and some realness, from it, and say, hey, I was just talking to a poet the other night that I went and saw, and she was just telling me, she was like, oh yeah, you hadn't seen us as a group. I say, I was so proud of y'all. I'm so proud of y'all doing y'all thing. You guys, you young poets, you're coming up. I see you over here, you over there. She like, yeah, oh, but girl, stuff had went down. One of us went to jail. One of us had got pregnant and lost a baby. One of us, and I'm like, my goodness. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, the first thing I want to do is minister. The first thing I want to do is minister, plant a seed somehow, some way. And and so I realized that I cannot be in these places, because I need to be available for when someone calls me, to give them the real, substance, the real source of how they can change their lives and actually turn that poetry gift into something way more powerful that can help people.
So yeah, I trust me. Like I told, when I started off the show, people might think I'm kind of fluffing you up in a way, by giving you a lot of praises. But like I say, you're one of the top and phenomenal poets that I've seen in the local scene. And I've been I've been here. I've been watching poets from Atlanta and New York, Delaware, South Carolina. I've been a lot of places on the East Coast, and I've watched a lot of poets get on stage, and I have yet to see one as dominant and as phenomenal, uniquely phenomenal as yourself. And I'm gonna let the people, see what I'm talking about, so you know I'm not giving any fluff to Elaina the poet. She earns every praise that she gets. All right. So here we go.
No embrace like your mama, no love like your mama, no cooking like your mama, no name like your mama, your mama, your mama, mama. Once an infant, but always my baby. Yes, I'm still that crazy lady with honest intentions. When it comes to the mentions of Iana, those dimensions of Iana, her mother's junior, but she's got dreams like a senior. She says she wants to be a singer, oh, and a fashion designer. Just a minor, thinking like Major League, and as long as I bleed, I'll continue to lead her the way that God leads me, you see. She was born July 31st, 2013, and I never could have dreamed her face. Never could have placed such a perfect little girl with me. It took the masterpiece maker to take her straight from heaven and into my room as my body made room for her to grow and bring me a new understanding of love. A walking, talking being. And I'm seeing this with my own eyes, but the surprise is how my love grows. And I know that she knows, but she can never really know how much her mommy really loves her, how much I adore her, spoil her, think the world of her, but I try not to spare the rod like in the word of God. But she's so cute, no dispute, she has my heart. So I instill in her what my mama taught me. Keep God first and always pray. Stay on your knees no matter where you go. The world should know you're a king's kid. From the time you enter any space, you erase the darkness with your light. Shine bright like Christ did. Be the light like Christ is. And you are your mother's daughter. And so much your father's child. You got your grandmama's smile. Always remember that your grandfather's dreams were that you would fall in love with the ability to read and inherit the seed to make your path in life limitless. Baby girl, your destiny is to be great. And your mother carried the weight before you. So the more you know about where you come from, the further it can take you. Your history can make you or break you. But God, He will never forsake you. And I will always be your mama. There's no embrace like your mama, love like your mama, cooking like your mama, no name like your mama, your mama, your mama. No love like your mama.
Oh yeah. So as you guys can see, phenomenal. Yo, definitely a standing ovation for that. Just in itself, I just feel like every time you sing, you kind of give me that Jill Scott. You know,
What happened?
Heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy on them Hidden Beach Recordings vibes, right there. Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. You know, and I always see it as, you know, when I see that and the vocal ranges that you have, the uniqueness and how your poems are just gracefully placed together in a way, in a message that just hits you so hard. And like you guys didn't see at the end of the video, everybody stood up, gave her a standing ovation. Everywhere she goes, she gets a standing ovation. And you know, just a phenomenal thing that you do. And I definitely want to let people know that you are, when you say that you're about God and God moves you, you will perform anywhere. And that's what God does. No matter where you at, you'll perform anywhere. So I definitely want to check this video out.
In my room, and she would say, from the top of her head to the soles of her feet, and then her words and God's spirit would meet in the atmosphere and cover me every year throughout my journey. And I'm still earning my discernment while I'm in my element, yet I'm yearning for more. But he stays covering me while I walk through every open door. My future is secure, cause he is my security. No one can harm me. Greatness is my destiny, because he chose me. I'm covered by God, covered by God. I'm covered by God, covered by God. I'm covered.
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to show that the ranges, just that you're led by God. This isn't something you talk about. This is something how you move, the way you project yourself out there, carry yourself, and all these women, especially in a time right now when you're going through the Sexy Reds and the Cardi B's and all these other women, and now you have a woman that's nothing but style and grace, right? That comes into this place and now gives an added element for the women that don't want to be on that spectrum of womanhood and that wants to be the representation that led by God, like how you are. So I definitely wanted to show that part and just let us know the poems. I know the first one was about your daughter. The second one, just speak more on that and what was the inspiration behind those as well.
Before,
So,
sorry, Elaina,
yes.
before you respond, I just want to say, you got to be careful when you're in. You got to be careful when you're in the presence of a real artist, because when you're with someone that's at that muse level, it's just infectious. Because when you were speaking just now, I was like, wait a second, I thought you about to bust out in the flow yourself. I'm like, wait a second, hold on now, it's catching. He's about to start getting into poetic space right now. So I'm like, hey man, okay, you float over there, but yeah, that's aside. When you have art in the room, when there's the real blessing with that, and I think people who've been around the arts long enough can kind of testify to that, even if they weren't aware of it. That to some extent, it's a little catchy. You hear someone speaking, and that all of a sudden just starts sparking your creativity, or maybe you're a painter. All of a sudden, you know what? I got like a little extra paint juice. Let me go ahead and whip this canvas out the way, or let me throw these extra notes in this song. But definitely a testimony to the legitimate skill that's present.
Yeah.
Nice.
Go ahead, Lena.
But I was gonna say, like I was telling you earlier, Bobby, everything is a source. And so what you experience and what other people experience is the spirit of whatever that person's source is that you feel is what you feel. And so that's very important, like what you were saying, to be careful who you're around and the artist, because that spirit can be infectious to you. And that's in anything. There's a real thing called transference of spirit. And so a lot of times, a lot of times people don't recognize that's a real thing. And so people take it lightly, and they call it energy or whatever you want to call it. But what I will say is that I try my best to make sure that the Holy Spirit radiates off of me in anything. I want to be the light. I actually wrote that as a poem when Anthony was asking me about the poem. I did that at Prezzo, which is an Italian restaurant up in Palm Beach. A fire and ice event, which was an event that the Sabrina Harris, she booked me for, with a whole bunch of women who had been through some things and were going through some things in life. And so she wanted to have them all come together and let's sit down and talk. And then she wanted me to perform. And so I did that poem called Covered by God, because, I want people to understand that, it's a real thing to walk in God's grace and know it. It's one thing to be like, oh, I'm good, I'm straight, God got me. But it's another thing to know that God really has you. Like, I got angels watching over me. If you imagine, that prayer in the Bible that says the Our Father prayer, and at the end it says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And so goodness and mercy is a being, whether you realize it or not, because how can it follow you unless it's a spirit? How can something follow you around unless it's actually a spirit? So there's goodness and there's mercy. God's mercy is a living spirit, and his goodness is a living spirit that encamps us. And especially if you ask him of it, that it would cover you. And so when we were speaking earlier about Tiffany Montgomery, when I did my production last year, I wanted to write some poems because every year for the production, I always do new poems. I always try. That's what I use to write new material, because when I go on stage, I always want to be able to perform top-notch, brand new things. I do mix a little bit of one or two of the old poems in there, things that people are familiar with and like to hear. But I try to do new poems. So this particular poem I wrote for my show last year called Covered by God. And it was basically to let people know you got to get covered. You need a covering. In this day, in this age, this time, the enemy is so busy. You have to be covered and kept by something, and not just unconsciously believing that God's grace is going to continue to just keep you. So I announce a thing and I decree a thing, and I let the world know, I let the enemy know, listen, you can't touch me because I'm covered. Want to know who by? By God himself. He keeps and covers me. And so that thing was so amazing because I did that one. I actually have hooks. And so the hooks go, I'm covered by him. And I had redid I had my musicians do the Clever Erykah Badu track. So they mixed down the Clever. So we say, I'm covered by him. And then I have the background singers in the back, and they say, and don't you try him. Hey, and it says, if you don't know him, then let me tell you, he watches over me. He protects my family.
Watch out now.
He whispers to me while I'm asleep. He loves me. He loves me. I'm covered by him. So I did that one at the restaurant. And I started off by announcing Tiffany Montgomery says it best. When the enemy brings the test, you don't digress. You say less and pray more. And so Tiffany Montgomery, remember we were talking about her. Her ministry is called Covered by God.
Correct.
And so that poem is an ode to that ministry because I walk in that faith.
Yes. Awesome. That's, man, when I say it's powerful, it is powerful. So a lot of this is, I know you have an event coming up. There's gonna be, is this, like you say, every time you do a new showcase, you pretty much infuse new songs in this? Is this one that you're doing now, the event coming up at Broward? Is this one with new songs?
You better know it.
Oh, yeah?
Okay. You best to believe it. God gave me some new stuff.
Fire.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm super excited about it. I always never know exactly what response I'm going to get when I put these new poems out there. And then once I perform them at the show and I see the crowd and the people and stuff, and then I watch it back because I always post the shows afterwards on YouTube when they're done, being edited and stuff. And then I'm like, man, and then I take the poems out when people book me for the rest of the year. Sometimes I'll do one or two of the ones from the shows. And then I realize, like, man, God, you really gave me something, and I'm always getting blessed by it. And I noticed that afterwards because I be like really feeling the spirit in which God gave it to me. So I'm also one who is being blessed by the ministry that God gives me. So I'm just like, okay, so this year I got a few new ones that he gave me. I got some this year I'm doing fashion. I have two local vendors, V's Couture Boutique, and then Kenny Worley's Fashion Apparel. They're gonna model. They got some girls walking down, so I'm gonna do one model segment in the first half, and then some set fashion in the second half. I got some youth dancers. They gonna burn up the stage, and they are so amazing. My daughter, 10-year-old, and my niece is also a part of that bunch of youth dancers because they need to be showing their gifts too as well. God created us with the purpose to worship him, which we do in song and dance and poetry and all the abilities that he gave us. This particular year's theme is called God and Art. And so what I said to that was, when God gave me that theme, my vision of the world came into my mind. If you've ever traveled anywhere in this whole world, imagine how beautiful the world is. Imagine the mountains and all the different landscapes all over the place that God has crafted himself, the great masterpiece, the great artist. So God and art, we are a part of God's art. He made us. We are a part of that thing that is God's great masterpiece. And then not only did he make us, but then he blessed us with a gift that is so powerful that our gifts have the ability to shift the atmosphere, and they make difference all over the world. So then there's music, which is universal, makes a difference all over the world. There's art, which is universal, makes a difference all over the world. There's poetry, all these things. So imagine God, the great masterpiece maker, and then us he made with these abilities, and our abilities are so powerful. So God and art, I had to do it.
Definitely. How I know we're going through a time right now where we see I think a lot of people are saying it's a gender war going on. Somebody like yourself who is grounded into family, you have a husband. Can you at least list a lot of the great things that your husband does, that whether it is consciously, subconsciously, or just knowingly, that he does that helps you to balance you, especially a woman of great caliber that's moving through an arts field or arts lane and guided by God as well?
So, one of the things that I learned on this journey too is that a lot of times it's tough when you're with someone who's not an artist, because they have to have an understanding like none other. And especially if you're a hungry artist who is like constantly on the grind. So that's why I was telling you in the beginning of this journey, for me, it was bumpy because I was out on the road doing a thing, thinking that I'm doing something, but I didn't realize I was neglecting home. And so me and my husband had to come into a place of real communication, but that took me really digging into the Lord, really going into warfare for my home and for my family, realizing what I have and realizing how it can be beneficial to me if God is at the foundation of it. So, the Bible teaches us that if one is going to draw the other, if one is stronger in the spirit, one of the spirits are going to draw the other. And so it took me like really digging in and going into the word, going into fasting and praying, and a lot of qualities God allowed me to see that I do have in my husband. He definitely pushes me beyond my comfort level, which I'm stubborn. And so a lot of times I feel like I know what I'm doing because this is my gift. So I'm gonna need y'all to understand God gave it to me. But no, I had to take a humble pill and really understand that, he loves me and only has the best interest for me at heart. A lot of things that he does and has done over time, even with our daughter, where he's stepping up and making sure constantly throughout the years, over 10, 11 years of this, making sure she's good, going to work, being there for me, understanding, and just coming to a place in our relationship where now he just basically has decided that, he'll come to every show. He'll come to the things that are important. These are things that I need him to do. I need him to support what I do. I need him to understand that I've made a decision to live and walk in purpose. And so that's more than I can ask for when it comes to my gift and my calling and what I'm doing. Is you being there, understanding, helping with my daughter, pushing me outside of my comfort zone, giving me ideas even when I don't ask for them. Thinking about my stuff, even when I don't think he's thinking about it, like, oh, I was thinking about that thing that you're doing. And why don't you just do this and do that? And I had to see that's him really showing me he's interested. He loves me and he's accepted what I'm doing. And so it's been a journey and a learning process for me. And the whole time he's been there. And so I'm grateful to God for that. And that has been support,
Yeah, definitely. I think that is so superb that you have that dynamic. What is your sign?
I'm a Cancer.
And what is his sign?
He's a Taurus.
Oh, geez. Oh, okay. So, so do you get a little sensitive sometimes when he's so forceful?
Listen, it took a pressing and a shaking, baby. A pressing and a shaking because my grandfather, God rest his soul, he was a Taurus and he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, she's a Capricorn, and my grandmother is the most humblest person that you can ever imagine. And that's the thing. I was raised by old school grandmom. My mom is a wife who, my mom had a little bit of more modernized way about her. She still cooked and did a lot of different things, but my mom took on a lot of my grandfather's ways. My grandfather was a carpenter, a builder. He was a man's man. And so, my grandmother, she just loved him so. She was the most humblest, and everybody knows that she just was that sweeter part of him, and he needed her. He needed that in his life. And so I realized that too about my husband, that it takes one. It takes a person to know a person, love them, understand them, and then be able to live together with that person, and not just live together, but live together and grow together with that person, and not just live together and grow with that person, but live together, grow with that person, and grow more in love, more in the knowing, more knowledge, more understanding about that person, and understanding about yourself. Because I realize too, God shows me all the time that a lot of things that I couldn't take his toughness, because there were some things in me that needed to be worked over. And I tell people this all the time, and especially on my show, let us stop satisfying for how we are and making excuses for how we are. It's like, oh, I've been like this all the time. This is just how I am. That's just how I am. He got to take me for how I am. Why he got to take you like that? Why you can't change? Why you can't shift? Why can't you grow? Why can't you recognize things about you need to be changed? We cannot stay the same way. So I had to realize, dang, I am selfish sometimes. I am this. And it was such a beautiful feeling to see myself and be like, dang, I got to change that. So then I recognize at certain times when he talked to me, and I take it, and that thing doesn't bother or lift up in me anymore like how it used to. And I'm like, dang, God, boy, you're really helping me, and that's growth. And it feels like growth. It feels so good, and that's how you stay. That's how you stay and stay and stay, and you want to stay. So it's work and a learning process and a growing process, but it can be, people don't get to 60 and 50 years, and not having had to endure some things and still decide. And I ain't talking about toxicity either. I'm not talking about staying with somebody who beating you down for 50 years and stuff like that and cussing you out. Now I'm talking about the real stuff, the real stuff that God intended for marriage.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought that.
Shut your mouth and keep on talking.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want to share this video real quick, and I think it's important that you brought it up. I think it's great that when women bring this up, it should be more impactful. So I'm gonna play this video real quick.
Realized why women think they are better than men because we have a problem with accountability. Most women can't admit their faults or their flaws about anything when it comes to a relationship. And because we don't know how to do that, we think we are just these perfect patties when no, we can be just as toxic as these men. And quite frankly, a lot of y'all are narcissistic, controlling, and abusive, verbally and physically. And then you want to blame the fact that we're emotional? No, sis. No, sis. You got to get those emotions in check because you're a grown ass woman. You're an adult and you should be able to control your behavior. Those who can't are children. Okay, so if you're a grown woman and you don't know how to control your
All right. So yeah, I thought that was on time for what you
Mm.
said. But go ahead, Drake. I know you're about to cook on that.
Oh no, I was just saying. It's funny the word choices that choice that she made in that video. Because I don't know if you saw it. Well, I'm sure you have because it went viral. There's a video that's been circulating. I saw it on Instagram of this woman being arrested. Ultimately, she was arrested alongside her young daughter. Well, the daughter's about, I think, 7 or 8 years old. And supposedly the backdrop was that this woman, her sister, and the girl were in this department store, and I believe they were stealing items. And so I guess they brought the daughter along with her to look innocent. We're just, excuse me. We're just a family here. We're not doing anything. We have a child with us. We wouldn't do anything, what have you.
Yeah.
And so supposedly, based on where they're on the video, the sister didn't get detained, but she had already made up with some items. And the woman didn't have anything with her, but she was there with the daughter. And the police are talking to her. And the whole time, you hear this young girl, this young child going off. And she must have been, I think you saw it, she must have been about 7, 8, possibly 9 years old. But if you didn't hear the tone of voice, you would have swore up and down that this was a woman 3 times that girl's age. The way she's hollering, she's cussing. Oh my goodness, get off my mom, stop recording my mom, cut this, bruh, on me. And the whole time I'm just looking like, this is disturbing. And so ultimately they put the mother in handcuffs and the girl is completely losing her mind. But everything about her behavior was that
So they did put the mama in handcuffs? I didn't see that part.
They did. I might have seen an extended version of it, but
Okay.
they kept her and she was, of course, maintaining her innocence. I don't know what's going on, but she's trying to calm her daughter down. But the whole time, the girl sounded like she was in her 20s or 30s and a ratchet 20s or 30s. So think of every Cardi B, Sexy Red video. Think of all the images that come up with that. And unfortunately, this poor girl has it down pat already. And I'm thinking to myself, because just say like you said, sounds like a child. And I'm taking this girl and I'm saying, this is exactly what it sounds like. And to those women who are like this, this is what it sounds and looks like. It's only a little different because you're bigger, you're obviously a full-grown adult. But in the end result is it's nothing more than a tantrum being put on by an older child.
Yeah.
And the same way how it's every bit as unappealing, immature, and distasteful when it's being done by a 9-year-old, it's just as much so, if not more so, when it's an adult that's doing it, because we're adults. When we're children, we have an excuse. We don't have the life experience. We don't have that background, that understanding. But as an adult, there's no reason whatsoever you should not have the ability to be able to regulate your emotions, control yourself, and to behave and operate to a certain standard. And if you're lacking, if you're up to par, be honest with yourself. You're not behind. I need to do better. But to double down and maintain that you're fine and everybody else has the issue, that bird can't fly.
I had said earlier, that and sometimes it's not tough, but it is what it is to be the one to always have to speak scripture, because that's actually where we are. The Bible says again, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but of spiritual wickedness, principalities, and things in high places. If you look over the past 2 years, you've been seeing a huge back-to-back posting of different divorces. This person got divorced, that person got divorced, this couple got divorced. There is a high principality, and especially here in America, that is coming for marriages, coming for the separation of family, men and women, which everything is linked. The mentality of the women is tied to the single, and now you see them popping out just pregnant. You don't even know who the daddy is. It don't matter who the daddy is. A lot of these things that the enemy is pushing over the culture, they call it the culture, but it's really the souls. It's the souls of God's people, of the people. And the people are lost. And so what's happening is the children are lost. And so, like what you were saying, you didn't hear that girl listen to Cardi B, or Megan Thee Stallion, but you automatically knew there's a spirit that is the same spirit that you can even see in a child, that this is something that is playing in her home. Either she got some brothers or some men, or this how the women talk. And this is what is amongst them. I ain't never heard so many people call their mama bruh, or we're in a time where that there's no respect. There's no respect, there's no love. It's about division and dividing one another. It's not even so much about race, because people, black, white, all of them pushing being single, or being women being with women, men being with men. They do not want marriage. The enemy does not want marriage. He does not want family. He does not want it in it, especially here in America. And so we look like, it's embarrassing to see how far we've come from family and foundation, and the women, being modest, and, things being frowned upon, as opposed to where we are now. To me, it's like how you were saying, you got to go all the way back and be like, back to the old days, to the ancestor days, when she come around with that spirit and that nurturing energy, where, the people are drawn to her, because that's not common anymore. There is none of that anymore. We're so far removed from that, and so I hate to say it. I was watching something the other day where I seen somebody making a video saying that they were the lover. It's called minor attraction. Attracted to minor attracted.
Oh yeah. That's hetero agenda.
This is where we are. This is where we are. So, we got so many issues. We can't even really just talk about one particular thing, because all these things are linked to the fall of what it looks like. It's like, what are we going to do? Everybody's like, everybody who's of substance or of some type of goodness, we need to talk about this. What can we do? How can we help? What can we do to make a difference? Because it looks urgent.
It is. We talk about that. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. And this is one of the reasons why we made this platform is, we try to correct the narratives out there. We say a lot of things that go against the grain, because there's a lot of elephants in the room that nobody wants to address, and they just want to walk around it. We always, and I've always preached this, that we have stared away from the village mentality. I don't have any children, but your children is my children.
Right.
And everybody else's children that I come across is my children. I grew up in the era where drug dealers was telling on my mama that I'm out here in the streets, and I don't need to be out there.
Because they know what kind of mama you got. Correct.
Exactly. And they also knew that I was part of that village, and that's not the side of the village that I need to be on.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? This is grown man stuff over here. You a child, man. Go in there, go get your education. This is for the people that just felt like this the way they want to go. You ain't on that level yet.
Correct.
Stay over there, and we're gonna make sure you stay over there, because I'm gonna tell your mama gonna beat your ass, and then you ain't gonna be over here no more.
Right.
But we don't have that type of restriction. We don't have that type of authority that goes out there and see, like, I want better for you. Even when I'm not doing good myself, I'm gonna put all my energy and even my life on the line to protect you because I see the good
Right.
in you. You know, we
Right.
don't have that no more. We walk past children, we don't even say hi to people anymore. Everybody is
Hmm.
on this selfless thing. And
Yeah.
that's once you do that, it's easy for the dominant society, it's easy for the devil and everybody else to come in and conquer you because we
Correct.
don't have a unification, we don't have a source, we don't have a nucleus to go against the grain. So
Right.
I commend you on doing what you're doing. I appreciate it because I understand where you're coming from and I understand what you're doing. I know the work you're doing. You know, it's God's work and we need more of that because it seems like the the bad spirits is the majority of what's being portrayed right now.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like people like ourselves that are trying to navigate and help people navigate through these spirits and avoid it and not get consumed by it is like our voice isn't as loud as the others.
And
But
let me just say this, Anthony,
yeah.
to interject real quick.
Mhm.
Also, just to make a point that the Bible teaches us that in the beginning was the word was God, and the word was with God, and when He made us, He says, "Come, let us make man in our image." Now, imagine that if God made us in His image, and we get happy and we get sad and we get mad and we get hurt and all these things. Imagine God, the God who created all of us, watching us destroy his world, take all the things that, are good. And imagine, don't you think that if we get sad, God gets sad? If we grieve, that God grieves. If we get disappointed, don't you imagine that he gets disappointed or he gets angry? You understand what I'm saying? And so
Frustrated.
what we're trying to do is keep his grace on us here, keep us here in this place. The Bible says that the prayers of the righteous prevaileth much. And so if it was not for the people praying for America, praying for people, the real saints, asking God, please keep us, cover us, protect us, where will we be? you know and then like how you say you want to use this as a platform. This is what we have to do, be instruments, continue to use our voice. If one person sees it, if two people see it, you've done your job. But you got to do it. You got to keep moving for purpose, moving for the good, for God.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I tell people all the
Right.
time, I remember I told this one lady one time, she was like, yeah, I'm out here to do justice, to fight for justice for the community. And I told her straight up, I said, I'm, because I pretty much know a lot of people in the community. And I told her, I said straight up, I said, the best thing you can do to get justice for the community is not be out here with us. Make sure that your children is not out here terrorizing people. Because you can march up and down all you want
That's
with us
right.
all day, but your children are terrorizing the community and your children are terrorizing other children in the high school. So
Mhm.
make sure you're doing what you need to do in your household.
That's
And if
right.
everybody focus on their household, trust me, we wouldn't have all these issues that we do. And that's the problem.
Correct.
We're not focusing on our household first and then worrying about the outside.
That's
You know,
right.
and
That's
that's where
right.
the
That's
village
work that
come in too,
anyone and
because
everyone can do.
exactly that's where the village come in too, because
That's right.
every woman doesn't have a man in that household. They don't have a solidified person in that household. That's where the men outside are the ones that comes in and be the mentors towards these young kids. It's sad enough, like the biggest mentors that we have for these children normally come from this football coaches, you know,
Mm.
and then it goes and trickles down based on the resources of other mentors or who you're around. But there, a lot of the mentors are with a lot of these coaches, and shout out to Germ Carter and a lot of these other coaches that do a phenomenal
Mhm.
job with these children and turning them around, and looking at them as their extended children as well. And we need more of that, heading into
Yes,
the future. So
absolutely.
I know we have you on here, and I just want to get a couple more questions about some things, and then we could get up out of here.
Okay.
Um, the first thing I want to do is get into our next, what it is, our topic, which is Dear Men, right? So we have our segment, Dear Men. So for the Dear Men segment, the question that we have is this one. So Being that you're married, I thought this was a good question to ask and see what your thoughts are. My wife says she does not owe me sex. And she is right. She does not owe me sex just because I am her husband, but I cannot take it anymore. Sexual incompatibility is hell. I have been busy drafting divorce documents with my lawyer this week. I believe it's the best we separate because we become incompatible after some time. 4 years of marriage, both in the early 30s. Hormone tests come up normal. I begged her for marriage counseling with sex therapy. I did everything she pointed out. She came with other excuses. Since the beginning of the relationship, we take turns handling laundry and dishes. For other tasks, we have our own responsibilities for different rooms and tasks. It is not in the sexual department as well. She does not seem to be into having non sexual intimacy either recently. Countless discussions and nothing in the end. And it was not like that in the beginning. So I'm not sure what happened. Marriage counseling and sex therapy did not work either. So she seems happy in the relationship and daily life, but I'm not. We only had sex 2 times since the beginning of the year. She mentioned we should start trying to have children at the beginning of this week, and I got annoyed. So the question that he has for that is, hold on, let me take that off. What am I? Something kept for only breeding. So basically, he wants to know what is the position, what does it look like as a person that is married as yourself. What would be a vital solution that you could see for something like that? A guy that's reaching out asking.
So the first thing I would say is, what is the source or the foundation of the marriage? That's very important because a lot of times, we choose people and it ain't our person. And we try to make a thing work that doesn't necessarily belong. And just because you're married to a person doesn't necessarily mean that that was the person you were supposed to be married to. What I understand about a woman, or just being a woman myself, having been, um, having, had experience in my day, in my former day, and even up until this point with my husband, when a woman's in love with a man, naturally she wants to be intimate with him. There is nothing that could, remove that desire from her, a woman who loves her man. It's just, and especially her husband. Even if there are times when she doesn't feel like it, there would not be a thing where he'd actually have to say, well, I'm having some issues in this particular area, because it'd be so few times that she didn't want to be with him that it wouldn't be an issue. And so what I would say to that is, there's something else brewing in that he pretty much needs to look into. If they, how was the relationship in the beginning before the marriage? Was she heavily intimate with him then? Was that a thing that they were doing before? And then he said, okay, boom. Then she got married and she switched up. Where did it start? How did it start? You know what I'm saying? What type of person is she? Who are her friends? Who is she hanging around? Who is she talking to? What is her mother like? Who are her sisters? How is her life? Is she secretly being intimate with someone else? And that's why, her spirit is not connecting to her husband. Is she with her husband for her own selfish reasons? It could be a number of things that I believe he needs to look into. But I would say, in all things, if you want a marriage that is going to last, and one that is going to, at least fulfill you with those parts of at least the basic foundation of a marriage, then you need to seek God. I would encourage him to seek God, and in that, and that would just kind of look like having to start in a small conversation, like, Lord, if there's anything that I've done that I'm not aware of, if there's anything that I've said in this that I'm not aware of, I would need you to open up my heart to understand, and forgive me for that. But then also show me what I need to see in this? Is this for me? Is it not? Is this something that, I need to stay in? Reveal to me those things in my life in which I cannot see that you can see. Because a lot of times, we be looking for all the answers in the wrong place. And then, that don't even really be it. And so sometimes what we don't know, the biggest thing that we don't realize is that we don't really know our own hearts. We don't really know our own heart. So she probably don't even know why she doing what she doing, or why it's like that. It could be way deeper. But God knows our hearts because he created us. And so that kind of looks like you starting there, for him to search your heart and then to help to reveal to you those unseen things and parts in your life, because nobody you bring in, no professional person is going to be able to do that work for you. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to have to do that work for yourself. And that's what I know people say, oh, well, get help and get this and get that. That's fine. But isn't it a strange thing to be sitting on the couch of a counselor who basically is having issues themselves, because those are not things that people are going to reveal to you when they're doing their job. And so it's always, to me, I don't discourage anyone from getting a help professionally, but I tell you what, their source better be God, and that's who your source better be too. That's where you got to start.
That's great advice. Great advice. I totally agree with that. Sometimes those counselors, we talked about that. Bobby Drake pointed that out before. And one girl got fired behind it because she was spewing so much misandrous animosity towards men. Yet she says men is her biggest clients.
Yeah.
Like you can't do
Yeah.
that. That's the
They full of the
oxymoron.
devil, full of hell.
Yeah.
And the mentality that these women got today, you don't want to go sit with these female counselors, because, the men are going to walk out of there feeling like, what good are they? You know what I'm saying? Everything is leaning towards the woman. You don't listen to her. You don't do this for her. Well, what are you doing to make her feel this and feel that? And the Bible says that when God made man, he said everything was good, but it was not good for man to be alone. So then he made woman. So then we are supposed to help you. We are supposed to be here for you. And all this stuff got switched up somehow along the way, where now, we are all of this, and we are. But at the end of the day, we're still under the man.
Exactly. Definitely. Drake, you want to follow up behind that?
Ooh, apparently it's not just in the arena of poetry and singing the arts, but apparently, period, Elaina the poet is a tough act to follow. God damn. Jesus.
He's so funny.
But huge cosign everything that you said, sis. I applaud and appreciate the perspective, especially with the godly insight as well. Just to tack a pigtail towards the end of that, what I would also say is, if the gentleman were to listen to this broadcast and hear what we're saying, or for anybody else that's listening and they're in similar situations, I've seen a few posts going over this, and unfortunately, I've seen multiple men who've said that they're going through this now, or they're divorced or separated from a relationship that was like this. So this is not by any stretch of the imagination a one-off. This is an occurrence that a lot of men can empathize with and sympathize with. I would say, unfortunately, and I don't know if he's taken the steps already that you prescribed, Elaina, then absolutely continue. I would suggest that in addition to adding those things on, that he's on the right track. Go ahead, get those papers written up for divorce while doing everything else to try and mitigate the problem. But my biggest thing, and this has been a bandwagon I've been on for quite some time now, the most key and critical attribute that you can have as a mate, a significant other, and in your relationship is two things. It's dedication first and foremost, and it's willingness. Because there's absolutely no substitute whatsoever for will. You can be coming up short in a lot of different respects because we all are. No one's perfect.
Right,
So
correct.
you're never going to be the smartest. You know, it might be a huge head kick to your ego, but there's someone, probably multiple people out there who are more attractive than you. They got better bodies. They got more muscles than you. They have bigger breasts, a bigger rear end. They have a big everything. The sex is better, whatever. There's always going to be people out there who are better than you in a number of respects. People with more money, better jobs, you name it. However, if you are willing to improve and get better at certain things, willing to put the time, the effort, the sweat equity, learning your partner better, you can overcome these things.
Correct.
You can do a lot with someone that's willing, and even if they don't get all the way, I would suggest that the average person would at least feel a deeper bond and connection to a person, seeing that this person, they ain't quite there yet, but god dang it, they trying.
And I'm gonna just say this too. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've noticed that, um, and we just have to be real. You know how you say the elephants in the room. A lot of these women these days now are doing a lot of what is called modern day witchcraft. Different forms of witchcraft
Go
where
there.
they
Go there. Go there. Do it. Do it. Press the button.
they're doing what is modern day witchcraft, and they are dibbling dabbling into things that they have no business dibbling and dabbling in, and a lot of things they don't understand, that they're trying to go after a specific thing that maybe their heart or mind wants or desires something small, but then they open up these portals into their lives, into their marriage, into their homes, and then things begin to domino effect. And so the energy that he's feeling so strong that he's experiencing in his home, where he thinks that his wife doesn't even want to be with him, he might want to look into also what is her source, because certain sacrifices and certain rituals and different things that these women have to do, could be a reason why she's not having sex with her husband. If she's desiring a thing and this is what she has to do in order to obtain it. Because I'm telling you, these women on something. They own a whole bunch of stuff. Even burning sage and all these different things are things that tie into modern day witchcraft. And you have to do your research and understand what's going on. When we talk spiritual warfare, it is not a game. When someone says war, that's not a simple fight. That's not a simple battle. We're talking about your life. You understand what I'm saying? And the reason why it's so important is because life is like this. You understand? It's here and then it's gone. And not so much that you'll be missed, but then there's another side of that. So what is the life that you lived while you were here? Because everything we're doing here is working towards there. You understand what I'm saying? We won't be here forever. And this is something that we know, and people don't understand that when we're in a spiritual war, that includes your job, your husband, your friendships, your everything that you put your hands on is tied to some type of source, spiritual source. And so that's also a very big thing that sometimes people don't know what's going on in their home. You need to check out what your partner is into.
That's true. I'm glad you. No, go ahead, Drake.
And that's biblical too. They specifically specify for the priests of the household, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know, but make sure that those who are in your household are abiding by not just your rules, but by your spiritual practices, or even if they're not of the same mindset, that they respect them. Because you're the same way how if you have a child and your child does something illegal, maybe he goes and looks up something they shouldn't look up online, or they're making bomb threats or something, and the police come to your house and they're going to say, well, it was a child. I wasn't doing it, but you're responsible for your child. So your child might not be old enough for the consequences, but you're old enough because you're supposed to have your house in order. It's the same thing spiritual. The script's talking about that, how when you have a stranger that's in your land, your stranger's supposed to abide by your customs, and if they don't like it, they can shake the dust off their feet and keep it moving. But back to this specific situation with them, there's a couple things that needs to be mindful of, and this is why, because I used to be of the opinion, and I wouldn't say it was being naive, but it was having the principle without the experience and without the fuller picture. I've always been in the mindset that when I get married, I'm in this thing for life. I'm not coming in there with any, escape options, whatever. I'm in this, that's it. So death do his part, the end. What I realized is, while that's important to have, in order to make sure that your commitment is strengthened, you have to make sure that you are with people who have the same level of commitment, because there are those that can take your principles and use it against you. And now your principles are still your principles. You are still responsible for those. Even back in biblical times, when a covenant was made, even if the other person really did on their end of the deal, God still was going to hold you accountable for
Covenant
your
still
end.
being kept.
They
God keeps
they they
covenants.
gonna get their consequences, but if you violate yours, you still on the hook for it.
That's it.
Which is all the reason why you need to make sure that when you make these covenants or these promises, that you're not making it lightly.
You better
Know what
talk.
you get into, know who
You
you get
better
into it.
talk. Hmm.
So you need to make sure that you're careful about how you're going about certain
That's
things.
right. That's right.
And the Bible and God does make allowances for divorce, even though He hates it. But you need to make sure that you understand what is at stake here. When you're in
Hmm.
a situation with people, when you're in a sex marriage, because God gave us these urges, they're not unnatural. You're a healthy person in your 30s,
That's right.
whatever. You supposed to be, with all due respect, you supposed to be clapping as much cheeks with your wife as possible.
Hmm. But
That marital bed supposed to be getting worn
what
out.
stronghold has him staying in a marriage where where she won't give him anything, any intimacy, and he's still staying there and just hurting and going through it and trying to endure it? What type of stronghold is making him cooperate with this?
It could be that level of commitment. Perhaps he's thinking about divorce. I don't want to lose my resources. I don't want
He
to be
sound
left
like he
out,
think.
whatever. I want my marriage. So I've
Mhm.
been in a situation like that before too, when you're in a relationship that is no good for you, but you're just trying to be optimistic, hoping if it can
Right.
weather the storm,
Correct.
whatever. The danger with that is when you get to a point where you stay too long,
Right.
and now it causes you to break in different respects. So now you're in a situation where maybe because you stayed in here too long, when you finally get out of the relationship, you don't want to get another relationship anymore. You don't want to get married anymore. You want to have a wife. You want to have children if you don't have them yet. You want this, but because you stayed up and racked up too much damage, you don't have it in you to try again. That's one danger. Another
Hmm.
danger is because he's staying there so long, he's putting himself at a risk where now he's going to be more subject to temptation.
That's it.
So now you
That's
go,
it.
you cheat with someone else. And the crazy thing is, this whole time, she has no issues not giving you any, knows it's an issue. But as soon as she finds out you're cheating, now all of a sudden she's so hurt. She's
Hmm.
devastated. You broke this marriage up. She files for divorce, and that's an easy cut for her to get everything you worked for. When the truth is, a large part of why you're in that place in the first place was on her shoulders.
Mhm.
That's another thing to be mindful of. There's a more insidious thing that could be the case, and this is what bothered me when I saw him mention that even though they only had sex 2 times at the beginning of the year, she mentioned we should start trying to have kids. That is terrifying, because this person who has no interest in being intimate with you up until this point, now they're saying, well, let's go from not being intimate for very long to let's having kids. I'm curious as to whether or not she's getting herself serviced elsewhere,
Hmm.
suspects that she might be pregnant. And so now she's trying to go ahead and get him in bed, knowing he's deprived. And now all of a sudden, she's passing off this other man's children to him and has him on the hook taking care of another man's kids inside his own household.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of dangers that exist as to why this is not an ideal relationship situation to be in for too long. You fight for your marriage, you put in the work, you do all this, but you have to be honest about certain things. So when you're in a relationship with a partner who's made it clear they're not trying, they don't want to go to therapy, they don't want to do counseling, they don't want to try new things, they're saying you need to fix XYZ, you fix XYZ, and they come back with ABC, 1, 2, 3, LMNOP. This is a person who has no interest in fixing things.
Hmm.
And they will literally sit back and watch you self destruct and are unbothered. that's a dangerous entity to have in your home. When you have someone that sees you suffering, sees you unhappy,
Hmm.
and they're willing to toss you a life preserver, that's dangerous.
Yeah. And,
So,
and, and And to that, there was a part in there where you said that, it puts him at risk, for temptation or infidelity, and that, she wouldn't have any clue that that would have been initially off her shoulders or on her shoulders, or lack of better words, she would have been the blame for that or the cause that pushed him out there, and that's what it would appear. But quite naturally, God has given each of us a responsibility, and even in marriage, to understand that when He judges us, He's going to judge the spirit based off the choices that we made in this life. And so there goes away my wife, there goes away my daughter, there goes away my husband. There's none of that when we stand before the great judge. And so this is what I always try to remember, and even in relationships, because the people that we partner with in life, they have a major influence on us, and we're trying to work something together and live together and build together and do all of these things. But at the end of the day, if I decide to cheat, if I decide to lie, if I decide to give or not give, all of that will have been a choice that I made, which I'd have to repent for, or either be able to say, okay, God, I did all the things that I was supposed to do. And this person still put me in a place where I feel empty, I feel broken, or don't know, this doesn't feel like a marriage. Then that's when you have to make that decision to say, I can't do this, because I'm not going to jeopardize my soul. I'm not going to jeopardize my future, my destiny. I'm not, obviously, you ain't got nothing to do with my destiny. So I'm finna reroute this. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important when everybody's like, oh, take accountability for this, that, and the other. Listen, at the end of the day, we're out here with people, but it is going to be the life that we live. And I say that to that brother, brother, don't do nothing you ain't supposed to do. If you trying to work it out and it ain't working out, be very on guard, be very watchful, pay attention to the little things and everything. Take your notes and make sure you're doing what you need to do for the day when you need to exit. You understand what I'm saying? If that be the route, if she don't switch out and change up and show you that she wants to be with you and whatever was going on. But even that's a lack of communication, because you don't even know why she ain't giving it to you. So y'all ain't talking. You know what I'm saying? Y'all ain't talking about something. So even that sounds like a very milk relationship, a relationship that is still in the baby stages and has not grown or matured at all in any form. So yeah.
Definitely. So I do want to get into our next question of the day, our next segment, which is question of the day. And it lines up with basically what you two were basically saying. So the question of the day: why do women want the wedding without the marriage? And I'm definitely going to show you a video right now. All right.
Be willing to sign a prenup when you get married. Okay, this might sound crazy, but like, I don't want to be married legally. I just want a wedding, like the big wedding.
No, that's smart as hell.
Like,
No, it sounds crazy.
I don't. If that makes sense, like,
Travis feel you.
I just want to like have the experience, like the wedding, the big wedding, but I don't want to sign no papers saying that we married, because for one, I don't want to go through the divorce process. Two, I'm not signing no prenup, and if like my money is my money and your money is your money, so like it shouldn't be.
All right. So as a woman that is married, what do you feel at this young lady? Do you agree with it? What is some of the things and thoughts that's running through your head after hearing what she just spoke on?
The girls are starting to sound more and more like that now. It's just it's such an awful mentality, and I would say principality that's over the mindset of those of them who have been susceptible to environments of places. That is someone who is basically a product of these young rappers, like what you're saying, the influence of these women that are now, getting all these divorces and speaking and all these feminist, different types of mentalities, one who doesn't know God, who has no substance of, what the principle is to be a wife, to understand what marriage is, because even God loves marriage. We are to be the bride of God. And so this is another thing that goes back to an example of how many of them is the devil going to be able to influence and have them walking around with this mentality that they're going to speak on these platforms and spread this foolishness out into the atmosphere for people to actually be infected by it, to be infected by these mentalities and these mindsets. So you can tell how I feel about it, as far as the prenup. These mentalities are so surface. It's like they have no spiritual depth or understanding. They're only looking at things on the surface, what they seen on TV, what they think is supposed to be like. Ain't been through nothing, ain't endured nothing, And so I'm totally against this young, immature, cereal milk type of mentality that these girls have when it comes to marriage and understanding what the responsibility is of being a wife.
And I want to add in another narrative they put out there that I see is very common amongst women, is that marriage is now equivalent to slavery. So let's not forget that narrative. They say marriage is slavery, and they don't want to be a slave.
No, I disagree. Let's forget that narrative. Let's pretend we never heard this nonsense.
But that's what is being put out there. This is who has the microphone. These are the mentalities and the toxic mindsets that have the microphones. They have the platforms. They're out there. They're putting it in the music. They're rapping it. And then you see the little girls and the kids walk around and bop it to the music. And, you see the videos where you have the sexy red at the elementary schools, at these places. I mean, enemy is on a rampage. He's on a rampage, and if he's infecting the women's mentality, then these young college girls, they coming up the same way. And so this is what they're seeing. So they won't know a time that I knew. They won't know the time when mothers would let the kids go out and play until the street lights come on and then come back in. These children popping out the womb with cell phones and no daddy, and basically that's what we're getting. This is our next generation. And so that's what I'm telling people. I'm like, y'all, what are we going to do what are they going to do when we're gone? And this is what we're going to leave, behind. We're going to be gone, and the world is going to be in the hands of these people. These people with these types of mentalities, So I think about my daughter. I'm heavy on trying to make sure she understands who her source is. She's 10 years old. She'll be 11 this year. Baby, you need to know who to call on. You need to know, because when I'm not here and this world tries to come for you, I need you to be able to hold firm and stand your ground to your foundation. There's going to be a time where you're going to actually have to say, no, I serve the Lord. You understand what I'm saying? And it not be a thing that you keep a secret because ain't nobody talking about it. No, you're going to have to walk into rooms and announce who you serve, because you got to look different than the world. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to have to look different than the world, because you notice they all look alike. The world, they all are looking alike. They're talking alike. They're thinking alike. They're saying the same things.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You're absolutely right with that. Spot on. Drake, what you got for us?
I reflect back to what Elder Malcolm said, Malcolm X, all those years ago, where he said that basically the women are the container of the cultures when
Where do
a
you
society
go?
can raise no higher than the level of its women in that regard. And as we see it more and more as this nonsense has been fed into our sisters, we can see almost like a hot air balloon. We can see the balloon getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And now we're at the point where everyone's starting to wonder when that basket's going to hit the power lines because it's so close to the ground right
Wow. Yeah, straight up.
now. And it's awful because we're seeing this in real time and it's playing out. And this was something that back then I don't think they could have possibly fathomed this. I remember that video. I think it was filmed in 1972, I want to say. I don't think it was the 60s. I think it was early 70s, where you can see the effects already of the Great Society welfare programs, where pretty much, they weren't doing anything to assist families that had a man in the household, but they also were offering an abundance of jobs to men where pretty much it was almost impossible to really provide for a household uh, without either doing so illegally or having both parties employed. And you see where I think it was CBS, they were interviewing like a little room full of women, and they're asking them what their opinions are on on fathers and men having being married. And you see these girls then talking about, well, I don't think it's necessary to have a dad, or I don't necessarily need to have a
Mm,
father, because they're all single mothers. They're all
mm,
young women. I don't think anywhere even past 25. They're all young. Some of them were teenage mothers, and they had their little babies with them in some cases. And they were saying,
mm,
well, I think I can raise my child just fine because, I didn't have a father coming up and I turned out just fine. So it should be okay. And that was back then when this was still novel to the point where they actually had an interview about it, where this was something that was worthy of a sit down interview with several people. And that's what the mindset was back then when it was on the fringe. And now this is the norm.
mm-hmm,
And we're seeing people now, we're going from, it happening because there's casual sex happening with these young people, there's no protection being used or anything, to now where we have women, and not children, but old women consciously making the decision saying, I want to go ahead and have a child with no father in place.
mm-hmm,
We have career women. A friend of
mm-hmm,
mine shared with me where she had a co-worker who was actively looking to go ahead and have children. She was going out to see if she can go and get a sperm donation so she can have a child. And nothing wrong with the woman. From all reports, she's an attractive looking woman, good career, but she just simply wants to have a child, doesn't want to have a father involved. But her only barrier was how expensive it was, and she was thinking, well, maybe we can just go ahead and have it with a friend. I'm gonna see if I can find a good friend who, he doesn't want to have sex or anything, but or whatever, just to donate his sperm to me. He doesn't have to have any visitation rights. I just want my child. And this is a culture. You
mm.
have Ebony K. Williams, who's making the advocacy for this last year, talking
Oh,
about she believes
wow.
that women of a certain income shouldn't have to worry about putting their families on hold for their careers. They can go ahead and have their careers, and then when they're of age, they can just go and get sperm donation. This is the direction. This was being
Mm-hmm,
pushed. Like you said before, Lena, it's the principality. It's the
mm-hmm,
agenda, not just
mm-hmm,
at a physical, but also at a higher level, that's pushing
mm-hmm,
this idea where families are not necessary. Family is what
mm-hmm,
you make it. Family is
mm-hmm,
what you make it. You don't have to have a mother and a father, a husband or wife together. You can just go ahead and just have a child, however you have a child, and you're a family. And there's nothing
mm-hmm.
wrong with it compared to anything else.
And
Nothing's
and that's the
broken.
thing.
You're as full as anywhere else.
And that's the thing. You said something where you said it's normal now. And it's like, this is normal. A hand with 5 fingers on it. That's normal because we understand that the body was made a certain way. And then if we see someone with 6 fingers, we realize that's abnormal. But if we started to see people walk around with 6 fingers all the time, that would be something that we just accept. It's not a big deal. It's just a 6 finger. People can do things with it. Hey, it doesn't affect me. I have the 5 I got. You get what I'm saying? My 10. And we've seen people with extra limbs and different things like that, and we just move on. But if we begin to see people like that all the time, you know, In our minds, we accept it. So then we call it normal. But that's not normal because that's not God's original design. So when you see something abnormal happen, something happened along the way, which caused that particular thing to happen. And most times it's spiritual. People want to say it's genetic and this, that, and the other, but most times it's spiritual, meaning like you've laid with somebody who, has some type of issues on their bloodline down the line, somewhere down the line. And then so people don't even recognize y'all want to have all these kids without, being married, don't know the source, don't know what this man is tied to, don't know what this seed is tied to. And these things create all kind of issues, children who come out with real spiritual bindings on them, and that stuff affects your life. You don't even understand. I'm telling you, this thing is heavy. But what I will say is, when it comes to marriage, a woman, a man, being together, family, and all these things like that, you know, it's something that I believe, the enemy, the Bible teaches us that the enemy, he's like an angel of light. So he's the big, great deceiver. So he comes as if it's good. They paint this image like, oh, it's so good. It's so this. And people look at it like it's good. Like even when we see these girls, doing all these different things like the bowls, the little sound bowls and the meditation and the yoga and all these different things. People don't recognize those are forms of modern day witchcraft if you look into it. So all these
Spiritual
things,
practices,
yeah, so all these things we look at like they're normal, we start to call them normal and we start to embrace them like they're normal. Like a man saying he's a woman is normal, and that they want to put it out there so much that, eventually people will begin to say, hey, that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But it ain't. It won't change that the hand only should have 5 fingers. It won't change certain things. So I refuse to accept that mentality and say, hey, that's normalize this. Every chance I get, I'm going to say, family, husband, wife, where's the husband? Where's the wife? Hey, you're pregnant. Oh, well, are you married? You're engaged? Always reminding people that there is foundation, there is substance, not settling for what America has decided to say, this is what it is. My job is to remind you of the principles of the word of God. You understand what I'm saying? So that we can get back to that, which I don't know when we will, but I sure will continue to be on my post.
Absolutely, in my house. I'm always bringing reference to this because it seems like every day, if not every hour, I see more and more confirmation. This is where we're at, but I'm always relating what we're seeing to the old story of the emperor's clothes, where the emperor, he goes and says, I want this nice fancy robe. I want something that no one's ever seen before, no one has. I want to look like my title. And so they get this dressmaker, who's the best dressmaker in the world, and he goes ahead and is like, dang, I don't have anything for this. So he goes ahead and says, well, here, king, I have this just for you. Here's this robe. It's made with the finest fabric. It's in the most radiant colors of all. No one's ever seen anything like this. And he's told him nothing. But because he makes this big deal about it, the emperor doesn't want to look stupid. So he plays along and says, oh, yeah, this is an amazing robe. He's like, emperor, you should put it on. And so the emperor gets completely naked in front of everyone, puts on the clothes, and he's like, this is amazing. I've never felt a garment this light before. He's asking subjects, what do you think about it? And none of the king's subjects want to get put to death, so they're all like, emperor, this is amazing. This is the truth. And he goes and ultimately has a parade where he can showcase his clothes. And so the whole kingdom is out here now looking at this naked man, but all saying, yeah, man, this is amazing. Our emperor looks great. Until finally one child eventually says, the emperor's naked. He's got no clothes on.
Right.
And then breaks the spell, and everyone's like, yeah, oh my God, I can't believe he's naked. But you all saw this before. But it took that one little child to call it out and say, no, you know what? This isn't on the level. This is off. To give everybody else the courage to say, yeah, this ain't it. This ain't what we're dealing with. And it's the same thing. So like you said, it's important when we see these things to not just sit back and be quiet and let it have rule of the day. You gotta
Correct.
let it be known, like, I see this the situation. I understand
Correct.
this is where you are. I don't have to necessarily bust you over the head with it, but I
Right.
gotta let you know one way or the other, this ain't what it's supposed to
That's
be.
it. That's it right there. We cannot be quiet with the truth. No matter how afraid, you are to speak the truth. If you're in a position, I'm not saying going around, blasting and doing all these different things. But if a person asks you a question and you know the truth to the answer, as opposed to saying something that you think people want to hear, you have to do that. I've gotten out of that. I used to do that too. Like, my show is called God and Art, and I had went for some funding this year, and they told me no, because the word God is in the production, and that maybe I should consider taking it out. And even a lot of people with the city and different people was like, there's just got to be a different way to word it, and this, all these people want to take God out because they don't feel like it's fitting, or the majority will be offended, and this, that, and the other. But I will not do that. And I'm not going to even allow what could possibly come, or what people think will be better for me, or what make it bigger and better and sell out. If it don't sell out because God is in it, if it sell out because he's in it. But one thing about it, that's who I serve. And everywhere I go, people are going to know that's who I serve, because one thing about it, the enemy, he don't have no problems with letting you know who he is and where he is when it comes to certain things. Like when they want to go in there and say, my child, says that she's a girl when she's a boy. The enemy will speak loud in what they want to do. You see, every month, the enemy has completely reserved a month in the year. They call it pride. The Bible says that God hates pride. I'm sorry to do this on y'all platform, but I'm just saying, the Bible says that God hates pride. And also, the rainbow was a covenant that God made with Noah to the world. You understand what I'm saying? So all these things that the enemy will do to try to deceive us. Now, they don't take the rainbow and try to make it seem like that didn't have an origin. That the origin of that was God. God made that specifically. So all these things that we have to, not saying going around and riot and picket, but we have to say what is true. When given the opportunity to speak the truth, you have to speak the truth.
Yeah. On this platform, we do truth to power. So no need to apologize for speaking what is true, what is
You said
factual.
what you said.
It is what it is, and it can be looked up and can be researched and found to be factual.
Right.
Just like a lot of things, the sundial. When you look at the sundial was basically there to let our ancestors know when the sun was coming up, the rising of the sun. That sundial has been turned into a swastika. That's what the Nazis used to kill off the Jews. When you look at the ISIS was a predominantly a phenomenal, legendary pharaohs, right? So she was a goddess that was out here doing great stuff. It was an iconic goddess named Isis. They took ISIS and made what? Some terrorist group. So now ISIS is demonized. If you look at the history of stuff, everything that has been positive, they'll take it and corrupt it into evil. So what it does is steers you away from the goodness and the origin of what the purest form of it was.
Right.
That's why they turned a lot of this good stuff into evil things, because they don't know the truth. So the minute you say ISIS, people gonna gravitate to a terrorist group. You know what I'm saying? The minute you show a sundial, people say you're a Nazi. You out here hating Jews. So you got to understand the origin of it in order to see the direction of why they're doing the things that they're doing, and covering up your truth by putting a narrative over it and making it evil. So by you saying what you're saying, you're speaking truth to fact, and they take what they want to take of something that is positive and then use it and incorporate it for their own evil agenda. That's what it is. We can't sugarcoat anything about
That's
that.
it. That's
So
it.
I do want to say we're about to get up out of here. I did see this meme, and I just want to show it real quick.
Ooh,
But this is
state
how
the
we
party.
equally
Women
yoked.
dating the pocket. That's why everyone's unhappy.
Yeah. So this is why we're unequally yoked. You know, a lot of dudes out there, not every guy, but a lot of dudes out there are dating bodies, and women
Mm-hmm.
are out here dating pockets. That's why
Mm-hmm.
everybody's unhappy. That's why you're unequally yoked. And I do want to show this video real quick, and then we can go ahead and let everybody know how they can find you and your upcoming events. But I
Yes.
think the reason why I want to show this video is because you have stressed how much the spiritual warfare, how much of the evilness can be breeded and programmed even our youngest children. And
Right.
this right here is scary. I'm gonna show you this, and this is scary.
I want to be pregnant.
So she accepted her award, and they asked her, you know, go to the podium and let it be known, what do you want to be when you grow up? She says, I want to be pregnant. So you're looking at a young girl who I'm pretty sure seen Sexy Red. Sexy Red has been parading around her pregnancy. She's talking about bending over, making your coochie breathe. And these young girls don't understand the process of adulthood and how that leads up to that. All they see is a girl that's pregnant, dancing, having fun. And they feel like, as a 6, 7 year old, 8 year old girl, I want to be like that. That's what I want to do at this age. And what we don't understand is that the agendas now are pushing a lot of this pedo agenda. You got guys that are 50 years old, and now they're trying to push this identifying issue. So now I'm a 55-year-old man who identifies as an 8, 9, 10, or 14-year-old child. So we have to understand what they're programming
Demonic.
children into, and how they're programmed to have a more evil effect later on down the road. And like you say, we have to step up and say something. Just like the story Bobby said, it got to be, you have to be that one person. If everybody ain't saying it, be that one person to say, nah, that ain't right. We ain't
Be the
going down
one.
that path. And I stand firm on this. And you're going to
Correct.
have to get me out, because I'm not going to allow no child to get up here and talk about she want to be pregnant at 7 years old when she has a whole life ahead of her, and she needs to stay in a child's place and be a child and live a life of a child, which is joyous, until she gets into the real world to pay bills.
But
And
that's the kind of spiritual wickedness that we are praying against. That's the kind of spiritual wickedness that we're fighting, the kind that even are in the children because of the influence of the enemy working in their home, actively
yeah,
working through their mom, actively, and so that child is a product of spiritual warfare. And
correct.
so she's going to have to be, she's going to have to be baptized, and she's going to need some, spiritual covering and prayer. And unfortunately, she may not get it. She may not get it until she grows up to find it on her own, because you can tell that in her home and in her environment, this is what she's subject to.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
All right, man. I appreciate the fact that you rode out with us. We had a great topic, and very informative episode. And I wanted people to follow you and understand how powerful you are. So just lay out everything you got going on, the websites, your events coming up, and how they can reach you.
Yes, 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 y'all. It is your faithful messenger, Elaina, the poet. That's Elaina, the poet. One word all together. You guys can follow me on Instagram. Um, Yes, that's me. I have a show that I do every single Monday from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. live on my IG. You guys can tune in. It's Eat with a Poet, and it's content given to me directly from God. I ask Him for it, and tomorrow I'm going to be discussing what is prayer, part two. I think it's very important for us to understand what prayer is and what we use it for and so on. So we did part one the week before Memorial Day, and then tomorrow we're going to do part two. Also, I am bringing the jazz back to the Broward Center Performing Arts. That's Elaina the Poet Brings the Jazz 2024. It's going to be at the Broward Center Performing Arts on June 22nd at 7 p.m. from 7 to 9. And you guys really should get your tickets. You can get them on Ticketmaster.com or BrowardCenter.org, or you can go to the link in my Instagram bio and just click on it. Follow me on Facebook, Elaina Spoken Word Poet, or Elaina Worley. That's my regular page. Everything on there is all Elaina the Poet. I don't post anything personal. I always post things that are about message, substance, God, and purpose. So follow me on all of my platforms. Again, Elaina the Poet Brings the Jazz on June 22nd. That is my theater style production. I'm going to be doing some spoken soul, got some new poems. It's going to be our live band, fashion, youth dancers, got some amazing artists, live painting. And it's just going to be a feeling. From the time you walk in the door, you're going to feel it. It's going to consume you. It's going to be such a sweet, overtaking feeling. It's going to be warm. You ain't going to know how to explain it. Then you're going to sit down, and then it's going to be feeling after back, after back, after back. And when you walk out of there, you're going to still feel warm, and then you're going to go to sleep, and you're going to wake up and remember, dang, that was so good. That's exactly how it's going to play out for you once you come to that show. And I can tell you that because I fast for that, and you will feel that way. So Elaina the Poet on Instagram. You guys can also follow me. I'm on YouTube too, Elaina the Poet. Elaina the Poet on all platforms. And I always say poetry is a gift because it is. I want to give a shout out to Anthony Malcolm for having me on. He is a jewel, is what I can say. You are a jewel, brother, and an irreplaceable jewel. To my new host, Bobby Drake, who I just met, I love your spirit, brother. Everything that you said, and I'm gonna take away that same warm feeling. Maybe not as big as it's gonna be if you come to my show, but I'm gonna take this one here.
Walk
Take it
front
with
row
me.
center stage. We in there. We in there.
Oh, I would love that. And I'm telling you, it is going to be an amazing event. It is God's production. It is not my own. It's His. And so you will experience that feeling. And it's not church, so it's not like that, but it's just something that I'm offering to the people, that God's allowing me to offer to the people, not like anything you've ever been to. So it's not a poetry show, but you will get some poetry.
Nice, nice. Appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. We are awesome. Anytime you want to come back and share with us. One thing I wanted to ask, when it comes to your show, is it all ages? Everybody can come? Should they bring the
Anybody
children?
can come.
Okay, so go ahead, bring the children, expose them to something great.
Anybody can come. Anything I do, children can be a part of.
Yes.
Because if God is in it, children can be a part of it. There's nothing that He can't, he wants us all because their souls matter too. So I will never do anything where children can't be a part.
Okay, so that's excellent. That could be, you don't have to send the children over to grandma's house, have a day
Bring
for the
them
children.
to the show.
Start doing things with the children. More things we have to do with the children, the better on. It's a great memory. It'll be a nice family affair, and you'll get some great, great, great information and also a great show as well. All right. So thank you again for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Definitely doing a part 2 to the dating videos, a dating show that we did 2 weeks ago. All right. So thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you again, Queen.
Thank you so much.
We
Blessings,
love you.
Y'all.
You too.
All right. Be blessed.
Manifestation. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up.
A place where we inform.
Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
You gotta eat what you kill. You gotta go out there. You gotta hunt for your meals.
We all have that ability to connect with people, to be that motivational person in somebody's life.
You gotta let people know there's certain lines you don't cross, and that there's gonna be consequences if you do.
Man up.
If you are an adult and you are in a relationship, that person's emotions are not your responsibility.
Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
The devil, during slavery, destroyed the masculinity or manhood of the so-called Negro. No man. No man. Right now you got to be trained all over again to be a man.
When someone is obligated to do something, it is binding upon them to do it. And failure to do it causes reaction.
Man up.
Position make you rich. I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life forever.
If that people knew that glorious path, if that people knew that glorious path, if that people knew that glorious path, then they would be more inclined to respect themselves.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up.
A place where we inform.
Manifestations.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
You want to tell me about yourself? Go get your friends. I'll tell you who you are based on who your friends are.
Don't just live and die. That's an ugly existence. Make your life matter. Make your life count. Live a life where people can actually mourn you for the things you left behind, not just because you were around and existed.
We need strong black nuclear family.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it is. Mother, father, son, daughter, all in the same house with a focus on the family unit as a whole.
We had Tulsa, Atlanta, New Jersey, Detroit. We had Rosewood. We had Black Wall Streets all over.
The Republicans aren't for us, but the Democrats aren't for us either. And we should have no alliance to any political party. We only have alliance to what is in our own best interest.
A place where we inform, build, and inspire.
Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations. Man up. Manifestations.